G'day and welcome to the Pursuit of Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Rosie Burrows, and I'm on a journey to find my freedom so that I can help you do exactly the same. Join me each week as I share the stories of everyday people who have found their own paths to freedom. I'm not going to focus on job titles and accolades because I don't care about that stuff, and neither should you. I want to uncover what truly makes you tick. Who are you when you step away from society's expectations and follow your heart? I still haven't figured it out yet. Have you? Either way, buckle up because it's going to be one hell of a ride. Welcome to the very first episode of 2024. It's good to be back, and I just know that this year is going to be an unforgettable one, hopefully in a good way. Today's episode is part 2 of my conversation with Kylie. If you haven't listened to part 1, please go back to episode 23, start there, and then come back here. And just a content warning, we are discussing domestic violence, so if you need to give this one a pass, please do. Look after yourself, you're worth it, and there is no judgment here. And just a reminder that unfortunately, this interview had to be recorded on Zoom. It's choppy in parts. The quality isn't as high as it usually is. But I'm publishing it because there's just so much value and I think you will enjoy it anyway. I'm going to shut up. Let's start the conversation. It's picking up where we left off with Kylie talking about birds.
I think my family have always loved birds, and we used to have this little family of birds that had come around in the spring, and they were called bulbuls, and they actually live there permanently now, but they only used to come around in the spring. And we just, Dad would imitate them, and he was a horticulturist, so I went to an all-girls school, and someone had screamed because a praying mantis was there, and I'd just pick it up and go, yeah, it's fine. It's just a praying mantis. Like, exercise to, insects and all that kind of thing. And I think Dad doing that certificate when I was a child actually gave me a love of nature. I think he gave us all a love of nature because he collected all of these things. Oh, come and have a look at this. And, I actually said that in my eulogy at his funeral in March at the Slows. I just remember him. We get out of the car and he'd go over to a tree saying, Cole, that's my nickname, Cole, come and look at this. And I'm like 9 and I'm going, oh, what is? And it's like, oh, Dad, just leave me alone. But it was a gift having a father that invested in that, that curiosity around nature. And when all of us on one level, I've got a sister that every time you have a birthday, she'll give you a plant.
Yeah.
I've got a brother who has an orchard, not big orchard, just on 5 acres. I got another brother that he lives on the water, and my sister has been an avid gardener most of her life. So that's the gift he gave to us. Like, you don't realise that unless you've done your healing. It's healing you can actually, through, because he was had a terrible temper when I was a kid. And that comes with my hate of conflict. That's the result. I don't I have a real aversion to conflict. It's uncomfortable and it makes me, you know. But when you do your healing, you can move through that, look what you did, you're a bastard, to thank you for the gifts you did give us.
Yeah.
Thank you for, and when you listen to Louise Hay, she says the same thing. She said, you will get to a point I got to a point in my own healing. I looked at my parents and I had an understanding of why they did what they did, but also a love for them that you don't get prior to your healing. There's only those other emotions that are sitting there waiting to be dealt with. The anger, frustration, the shame, the isolation, and whatever else comes up. And I listened to Brene Brown's TED talk on shame and stood in my father's kitchen crying my eyes out. Ashamed of being the only gay person in the family, and why couldn't I be straight? But through those tears, realised that that's just inherently who I am, and that's okay. But I had to process that. It's not that that emotion was wrong. It just needed to be felt. And then it was
Right.
like, right, I'm gone now. But I
Right.
needed to feel it. I
Yeah.
needed to cry those tears. And
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with anger if you deal with it by punching your pillow,
Right.
by writing a filthy note in a book, ripping it up and throwing it in the bin. You're not hurting anyone. It's an important emotion to, to say what they did to me was wrong. It's your own heart and soul going, that was wrong, and it makes that happen. But in dealing with anger in a positive way is the way to deal with anger. While you're not hurting yourself or anybody else.
Yeah.
That's the important thing.
That's key. Yeah. And I like that you said not hurting yourself.
That's right.
That's such an important part of it. And it isn't, they are important emotions. And I think in society, it's sort of like, oh, you can't be angry or any of these other emotions. Just be happy all the time. But that's not how life works.
Yeah. We're at the moment we're watching Outlander, and I've read a lot of the books. And when Claire, do you know the story at all?
No.
So it's a time travel. I'm fascinated with time travel. So she travels through, she's a nurse in 1946, and she hits the Stonehenge after the war's finished, and it's Samhain, or is it Beltane? There's a huge celebration, and women of the town have done a dance around the Stonehenge. I'll say Stonehenge. She calls it the stone circle, but I think it's Stonehenge. And so it opens a portal, and she goes up there a couple of days later to collect a flower and touches the stones and gets drawn back to 1746.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's such a multi-layered story. So she ends up falling pregnant. She gets into an arranged marriage, and they fall deeply in love. It's quite a beautiful story. But then she comes back to 1948, I think, but she's pregnant. And what I'm getting to is there's a scene with her going, she's narrating, and in a moment, all the people that I'd lived with for the last 2 years were gone. And there's a scene of her, on her knees, with her head on the ground, screaming at the trauma she's just been through. And it's just how important it was for her to scream at that moment. And I find, especially with women, we're groomed from a young age to be quiet, to be demure, to be in the corner, or to be the servant, or whatever it is. And you'll see it at the checkout and it's just the way society is. And it is changing, but I've seen it so many times. Over the last 30 years, it's gobsmacking, where you got the boy and the girl, and the boy will be poking the sister to such a degree she smacks him, and it's the daughter that gets into trouble. Nothing drives me more crazy.
Yeah.
That drives me insane. But what happens to that girl when she grows up is she doesn't speak up. She tolerates a whole heap of shit that she shouldn't. And the same with our boys, teach them to fucking cook and clean, and that their housework is their duty as well. It's not just hers. Because my generation raised a whole heap of blokes that are now a burden to the women that they are with, and I'm talking hetero, but, even in, same-sex relationships, it doesn't really matter. Teach your kids to help with the chores. It's a two-person job. You're messing up the house just as much as what your mate is, and it's a two-person job to do the house.
I think it's teaching them how to be a decent human being, right? It's got nothing to do with sex or gender.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it drives me insane seeing, like, when I was in the process of getting my ABO, and I saw this. Oh, the kid would have been about 10, and I was in trauma and shock. And this kid got his sister to clear the table, and he made her do it. And I was triggered, and I actually had to go with it. I said to her, "Don't you ever tolerate that shit?" Yeah. And I said to him, "She's not your slave." And this kid's like 10.
You taught him an important lesson.
Yeah, but as parents, we need to teach our kids to feel all our emotions.
Yes.
And that it's okay to. I've seen quite a few videos of, men that are just holding their kids while, they're filthy angry, and she's, screaming, and he's just held her, and he's just held a really safe space for her to process her emotion. So that's, like your generation that are having kids. So it'll be a few generations before we see the result of that young woman coming up and being a healthy human, because she's had a father that goes, okay, now let's talk about it.
Yeah.
You felt all your feelings and you felt all your emotions. What's going on with you? Help me understand, and by doing that, that will eventually change the world and how the world works. She might be a CEO that actually fucking gets it. Right. You know what I mean? Like, she's going to be a woman that can see through people's behaviours because she's felt all her emotions. She's going to be wise because she's had a father that's helped her do it in a healthy way. And that's world-changing stuff. And he might think I'm only one guy doing one kid, but that video went viral, and that might have inspired 10,000 parents to do the same thing. That's a good thing.
It's so powerful. It's so powerful. And I think I was lucky enough to be raised in that way, but a lot of people aren't. And this is very relevant to domestic violence survivors, but also lots of other people who have been through different traumas, different experiences. I want to touch on forgiveness. And I was listening to an episode of yours about this. My question is, should we forgive the people in our lives that have abused us, hurt us, whatever it may be? Should we forgive them? And is that the same as letting go?
I'm going to say no. I don't believe in forgiveness. I believe in processing your feelings around that and letting go.
Yeah.
And I said earlier in the episode of wrapping them up in love. But you've got to get to a pretty good place within yourself to actually wrap them up in love.
Yes. What was your journey like doing that? Because I know you mentioned, growing up, you're exposed to certain things in the household, and you could have chosen to be very angry about that. You shared that your dad died not long ago in March this year, but you've got such fond memories of him.
Yeah. And in my own journey, it was actually my mum that I had that came up with issues, but
right.
I don't tolerate anger around me either. Like, when you're angry and you project onto me, I won't tolerate it. You can fuck right off with that shit. I'm not interested. You either sit down and talk and we talk it through, or we don't. So when it comes to, my most recent ex, I don't believe. I think that's a very Christian thing. And I think it's a concept, a construct, to put all the responsibility on them. And yet I do agree, because Louise Hay talks about forgiveness, and I just don't like the word. I think it's bullshit. Probably from my childhood. I don't know. I just choose to let go and wrap them up in love, and maybe that is what forgiveness looks like. I just choose not to use that word. I won't have anything to do with it, because when it comes to healing from that level of trauma, you've got to really claim your own soul back, because they nearly suck the life out of you. So at some point I couldn't face that for a long time. It was only probably 8-9 months ago where I actually thought of that person and wrapped them up in love and then let them go. You know, if that's what forgiveness looks like, then that's what I did, yeah. I wouldn't say it's hugely important, no. I think reclaiming your soul's more important. Reclaiming the essence of who you are, rediscovering who you are, what you love, what's important to you, honouring yourself, honouring how you feel, and showing up for yourself is like more important than any of that stuff. It is a key factor, but it's not, when it comes to the healing process, it's not actually about them. It's about you.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
And that's probably a really hard mindset to adopt because you have to put yourself first.
Yeah. After a lifetime of neglecting yourself. Yeah.
Right. That's fucking hard. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very, very deliberate work. Yeah. But the other side of it, I used to say to myself, there was a thing going around on Facebook when I was healing, you know, the light at the end of the tunnel is not a train. And that used to make me laugh. And I go, okay, it's not a train. There's light at the end of the tunnel, but it's not a train. You know, just have a bit of a chuckle. But then it gets to a very dark place and you've just got to sit with that darkness and make sure you touch base with someone on those days where it's pretty dark, and just, you know, I'm not okay. Do you need me? No, I'm okay. I just need you to know that I'm not okay.
Yeah.
You need to be on your own, then be on your own, but make sure you've got someone who's safe, that knows you and gives you space that you can go, hey, I'm not okay. I need help here. Or I need to talk. Can you come over and just sit? Something like that. So you know you're not alone. And that takes self-awareness. It's all about being self-aware and reconnecting with who you are. Because DV and I came out at 41 and I was in violent relationships from 44 for 6 years. Yeah.
Shit.
Emotionally, verbally, physically, and on some level spiritually abusive relationships for 6 years. And that's why I say, you know, at some point I had to really think about if I went into another relationship, I'd be dead. And I had to not do that. And I thought, well, that's not happening. That's just not happening. I'm not doing that. And well, what are you going to do? So it's constantly asking yourself questions of where you want to be.
Right.
And a lot of people go, you know, I haven't found the one yet. Well, are you the one for someone else? Have you done work to become that person? In a long-term relationship, you need to be able to be open to that communication. You have to be open to having that person call you out on your shit. And nobody wants to hear that, but that's what honesty is. Honesty is being honest, but also, you know, that person, if you want an honest person, they're going to call you out on your shit.
Right.
You know, there's another side to honesty. Oh, I wish people, and I don't know how many times I've seen that in threads on social media. I just go, you don't actually know what you're asking for. I sat and wrote a list of what I wanted. Clear communication. I didn't want honesty. I wanted someone calm. I wanted someone who my family accepted and their family accepted me. And, you know, and I would write it down. I don't know whether you've heard it, a system where you write it down in the morning and you write it down at night.
Okay, yeah.
Every morning and every night. And that's what I did.
Wow.
And I was obsessed with it. Because I knew that if I didn't do that and all the other things, like it's a intense way of changing your life, but it's so worth it.
Yeah, I mean, look where you are. That's so phenomenal. You were in and out of abusive relationships for 6 years, and now you found the love of your life. You're engaged. You've got a house together. It is an amazing transformation, and I hope you feel proud of that because
absolutely. And when I get down, I think, but look where you are.
Yeah.
My program has taken 3 years to sell, you know, but I'm there. And a lot of people just buy programs and sell them, but I didn't. I made my own.
Yeah.
It's been an amazing journey, and I'm very grateful for it. I come from a place of understanding. I can empathize with the people that come into my group, and it's the safe space for people to heal. I know when I first came home, I went to the local salt water pool, and of course there's all these 60 to 70-year-old women in the change room, and they're all completely naked, and but in that was healing for me, because it was a safe space. And I said to one of them as I left, because most of them had left, I said, I just want to thank you for creating this, for that safe space. I said, I'm a survivor of domestic violence, and I've just got home, and you have helped me have that safe space, and I really want to thank you for that. And they don't even realise they're doing it.
No.
They don't even realise, and I've noticed anybody that's near water, most of them are happy. If they've just come out of the water, they go, oh, hi, how you doing?
Yeah.
Like, how's the water? It's like most people will say hello if they've been in the water. There's something about the water that is so cleansing, and you get out and you think, oh.
Yeah. Do you mind sharing the story with us? I know it, but our listeners don't. About how, I think it was a tarot reading you had, and
Yes.
It has something to do with water. So can you tell us that story?
So I was home for about 8 weeks, and I went to a tarot reader who I still go to once a year. So, and she was a medium, and I took my ring off. She said, give me a piece of jewelry. And she's real, a Greek woman who, and they're very forthright and to the point where, okay, yeah, there you go. Oh, this person's here and this person's here, and la 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 la. Oh my God, what's happened here? And oh man, talking about my ex, I had an opportunity to go and pick up all my belongings, and she said, "You are not to go anywhere near there." Crap. And that person's very, very dangerous. I'm like, okay, yeah, I wasn't going to anyway, but thank you for that. And then, you need to be in the water. I went, oh, okay, right. And when I look back, I have always loved the water since I was a kid. And this is what that circles back to that childhood thing I was talking about. If you love building blanket forts, fuck it, go and do it now. If you're 65, you might need a few cushions to get you up, but like, just do it. Re-engage, reconnect with that childlikeness that we have. Because it gives us a freedom and a joy that we've disconnected from. So I, even now, I'll say to a girl at work today, I said, I'm like a 6-year-old when I get in water. I said, I saw some teenage girls jump over the wave. So here's this 54-year-old going, yay! And that's what I do. I find laps very boring. Even though they're good for me, I find them boring. I get in the waves and I am just like a dolphin playing in the waves. I just love it. And I realised why she said that that's why I need to be in the water, because I get out and I'm so much more balanced. I need that to be in the water. And winter's the hardest time for me, obviously. I need to start migrating north so I can go swimming. But yeah. So that's and when they talk about exercise, they talk about doing something that you love so that you don't have to force yourself to do it. And that is my thing. So now that I'm in a position where I've got the money, so there's two sides to self-care. You have a version that costs you nothing, and you have a version that will cost you, the luxury version of that. So my version is going to the local water action park.
Cool. Yeah.
So I buy a season pass and three visits, and I've got my money back. And I find that I'm still working through stuff. Like there's this one where you go through down this. It has a platform that you stand out on, and the platform disappears, and there's a form of letting go. and breathing through that,
Yeah.
knowing that I'm safe. So I do that as an exercise of growth for myself to go, it's okay, it's okay. Yeah, and there's people that do it first and they'll scream and whatnot. And the first time I did it, I felt it was really overwhelmed and a little bit claustrophobic. Hang on, you're okay. You're okay. Just breathe. You're okay. If it's dangerous, that wouldn't be you.
Right.
You know, like, you're okay. Just breathe. And okay, that scared you. Now do it again. So I do that so that I can know that that little bit of a challenge is okay.
Yeah. I challenge out the listeners, actually, what you were talking about just then. Find the free version of self-care and then the luxurious version of it. And I love your example. You know, the free version is going in the ocean.
Yeah.
Your luxurious version is going to the water park and then just embodying letting go by going on that terrifying water slide or whatever you call it. It's not really, it's like a drop, isn't it? I've seen it. I've never been on it.
Yeah.
It's like a roller coaster.
There's a part that looks like that game Mousetrap, and it's got all in slide. Now I'm up there with all the 8-year-olds, but you know that's what I do. I love it, and the wave pool, and you know, and then I've even lined up for the one that takes 4 people and hitched a ride with a couple of 20-year-olds on the way down. You know, like that takes a certain kind of I do in the moment. I get embarrassed that I'm not there with someone, but it's good for me. But I don't challenging myself on that front. You know, I don't do it often, but that's what I do. That's my version of a luxurious, the expensive. But it cost me $200, and now I can go whenever I want, whenever it's. So and I only work 2 doors down.
Wow.
So my swimmers, either if I'm on afternoon shift, I'll go before work on a hot day, or I'll go after day shift when they're open. So like, it's while it's luxurious, it's kind of not, because it's bought and paid for itself already, and we're not even and
you're investing in yourself. Like it clearly makes you better, like happier and more joyful, and you're embracing your inner child, and it's part of your healing journey. Like I think we all just need to embrace who we are, and that's scary. I think a lot of us haven't actually spent the time to do that self-discovery.
Tell us that we're not enough, and we're not worthy, and we're not lovable. You are worthy, you are lovable, and you are enough, and that is my coaching motto: worthy and lovable. Yeah, right off the bat, and not for any other reason than you're here in this human experience right here, right now. There's no reason. You don't need a reason to be worthy. You don't need a reason to be enough, and you don't need a reason to be lovable.
Yeah,
we convince ourselves that we aren't worthy because some dick in the past, and that's not no gender attached to that word, told us that we weren't, but they were actually projecting how they felt about themselves onto us. And we've internalized that, and that's not true.
Yeah. So to everybody listening, you are worthy. You are enough. You are lovable. Full stop. No questions, no exceptions.
That's right. Yep. And work on that. Make that your starting. I am worthy to take my shoes off and stand on the grass. And if you've got neighbours that look, do it in the dark so they don't. Soak up the moonlight. The moon's gorgeous on a full moon. Like, it is the bomb. Start doing different things, if you're into telescopes, you might have one in the back of your cupboard. See if you can get a cheap one of, a night one off Facebook Marketplace. Like, there's a cheap version, if you're able to, and get a night vision one and start looking at the nightlife. There's heaps of different free, cheap options out there if you start looking.
Exactly.
But you start your journey in I can't, then you're right. And if you say I can, or where is there something cheap, that will be answered too.
Yeah.
And listen to good shit. Put good shit in your head. listen to, I know you're an avid podcast listener, listen to podcasts that, Atomic Habits and what was it, The Compound Effect were very good books for me.
Mm.
Good books, because they're not saying go all in and do all of these things. They're saying that drip in the bucket will eventually fill up the bucket.
Yeah. It's that consistent. I mean, I've read Atomic Habits, not the other book you mentioned, but it's those small, consistent things.
Of the Atomic Habits. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the life coach, Jack Canfield, I'm a bit of a fangirl of his. I just love his Chicken Soup for the Soul books. Yeah. I loved his books. They were a big hit in the 90s. And I did his course about 3 years ago, and I loved it. He is exactly what he portrays himself. He's a very gentle-natured guy. He's one of the first life coaches, and yeah, that's what he said. His favorite book was The Compound Effect. So I find that I struggle to read a physical book. So I went, well, if I can't do that, I'll listen to audiobook.
Perfect.
On the way to work, 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there. While I'm doing the gardening. Like, I've had earphones like you have with the cord, and I've been out gardening.
You've cut them. Oh no.
Trimming something and went, oh shit. So I'm grateful for Bluetooth headphones now.
Yep.
Oh yeah. So
now audiobooks are great, and that's something I've been getting into lately, like doing all the driving in the van. I listen to podcasts, but I was like, what about audiobooks? Because usually I'll read the physical book, but yeah, I'm really loving the auditory format, and it's great that you can kind of rewind it if you want to soak in something again.
Yeah. I would often on night shift pause it, write it down, because the writing actually gets into your brain. There's a psychology, and I've just bought a reusable notebook called a Rocket.
Yeah.
Oh my God! And then you can scan it and put that into your email.
Cool.
So it cost me like $50 off, and it is awesome. I love it. And then you wipe it, and there's the page again. It is so cool.
Cool. Yeah, I have seen those, so that's good to know that. Yeah, I might have to experiment with it because Yeah.
I love that. I got a bit down about my journey as a life coach, trying to get everything out there, and what's a way? And I saw a woman not long after I started following you that talked about someone with chronic illness, and I said, well, I don't have a chronic illness, but I've lost my motivation. Does that count? And she goes, yeah. And I'm tired,
Mm-hmm.
So I joined her group, and she sent through this blueprint of she used to have chronic fatigue. And she talked about writing down what your day's going to look like the following day. And so I started doing that, and man, it's just a huge weight being lifted off. I'm going to go and visit Mum. I've got to buy some clothes for her. I need to, water the garden, go for a swim. And then she actually says, put down the time it's going to take you to do that. I don't need to do that. I just need to write down and organise my head for the next day, and then I'm cool. And I sent her a message and said, I really want to thank you for that, because it's really helped me sort of free that being out of control shit.
You mentioning joining that Facebook group and, the exercise of just writing down what you're going to do for the day, which sounds so simple, but is clearly so powerful. I think it really hits home the power of community.
Yeah. And there's so people important. That have never commented on any of my posts. I've got I've got 660 people in my Facebook group. Taken 3 years to get to 660, and people that have been a member of my group for a long time have just said, you have helped me so much just with the quotes I put up. You don't realise how much you've helped someone just by doing that. And that's why that is actually the reason why I do it. You know, it's to help people realise that there is a possibility that you can heal. You got to do the work, but it's a possibility. Don't let your low self-esteem tell you that you can't, because you can. And even if that list that you write has one fucking thing on it, you know, that's okay. You know, that's how you're honouring yourself. And don't make it complicated. Just make it simple. And I know I've told you this before, but I'll tell your listeners, you know, I used to collect a sea stone or a seashell every time I went for a swim, and I've now got like 7 jars of seashells. And that's the day that Kylie showed up for herself. That's the day that Kylie did self-care. That's a day that I loved, the day my feet hit the warm sand. That's a day that I tumbled in the water and let go of my anxiety. There's one thing I used to do was I learnt about grounding. So I'd go for a swim, and then I'd lay on the sand, and I'd feel whatever came up, and then I would ask the ocean to take it, and then I'd go and let it go. So there was a real deliberateness around, you can go to therapy, but it's when you're not in therapy, that's where your work begins. And you have to develop a strong ethics around doing that work. And it really is non-negotiable. Honouring yourself is non-negotiable. It's really a must. Yeah, if you want to, and you know, and it's hard, and it's dark, and it's messy, and it's, you know, all those things, but you've got to remind yourself of the why. The why is the other side. The why is the light at the end of the tunnel, and it does come. The other side of the tunnel does come. It's because you want that healthy relationship. It's because you want a healthy relationship with yourself. Now, forget about being in an intimate relationship, a healthy relationship that you've never had before with yourself.
Right.
And that's where, when I say heal completely from domestic violence, I'm not the person I was 6 years ago. I'm such a better version of that. You know, like, I existed in that previous person in the depths, but I'm such a better person now. I'm healthy. I've developed self-awareness and intuitiveness that I used to just go, you know, I don't believe what I'm feeling. Just sitting with that intuitiveness and being aware of what happens after I have observed that. And it's so worth it, because my life's in a place that I never thought was possible 6 years ago. I didn't think I'd be paying off a house, and yet here I am with my partner. You know, like, it's so possible. You've just got to go through those uncomfortable, all that hard work. It's really important. Do work. It's worth it.
Yeah, exactly. Because you are worth it, right? Choose yourself, because you are worth it and you deserve better.
Inner part of you is waiting for you to show up for itself. You know, I remember reading a book. I didn't read all of it, but it was called The Shame That Binds You. And he had an exercise where you got your non-dominant hand and you wrote a letter to yourself. Your 8-year-old self, I think. And it came out like an 8-year-old wrote it. It was very powerful.
Wow.
And I remember reconnecting with that inner child and just crying, because that inner child had been so lonely. And that's a journey that started 10 years ago, that journey. You know, and it's sometimes you've got to leave that there and then do something else. But, you know, it's just, don't go, oh, that's it, I've fucked up. You know, I didn't follow through with that. Just leave it, because if you can't go there, you can't go there. And honour that part of yourself can't go there. That's more important than going there. You know, if you can't go there, that's okay. That's your heart saying, I'm not ready.
Right.
That's your soul going, I'm not ready. And just honour that. It's okay. And if somebody in your life is telling you to go there, you need to fuck them right off. Because it's important that you're safe.
Right.
Emotionally. And if that person's pushing you, they don't belong in your life.
Good.
They need to, if you're saying, I can't do that, whatever that is, in whatever way you're thinking of it, and they're going, oh, no, you'll be right. No. Hear me.
You need to trust yourself and go, no, actually.
So, and in your worthiness, in your enoughness is telling you, I can't do it. That's okay. It's okay. You know?
Yeah.
Honor your feelings and honor yourself. And that's a form of self-care, saying no.
Oh, saying no is huge. Oh, yeah, big time. And, you know, just because you can't do something today doesn't mean tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, next decade, that perhaps maybe you will be able to do it.
But it just means you can't do it today.
Yeah. So it's not yet, not ready for that.
Yep. And you go, well, what am I ready for?
Exactly. And sometimes, I know for me in the past, sometimes all I'm ready for is to fucking get out of bed that day.
That's right.
And that's all right.
Yeah. And that's the thing. If you know, and I've had stare at the wall depression in my life, and if all you can do is get up and have a shower, that's a good day. That's okay.
Be kind to yourself.
Yep. Because we live in such a go, 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 go world, we think that's how we've got to be, but no. What we have to start doing is showing up for ourselves and honouring ourselves and going, or yes, I am doing that. I've said no too much, and that's not actually what I do. I actually want to do that thing.
Yeah. I believe in that so much. Like, I have a tattoo on my arm. You probably can't see it. It says stay true, because I've realised more and more over time that when I don't trust my body, my intuition, my gut, so it comes back and bites me in the ass. I need to stay true to who I am. So it's taken a lot of work to learn who I am again and just listen to myself, trust myself.
Yeah.
I am enough.
Your journey of being on the road is very much a journey of trusting yourself and going, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to do it. And I've do it for a long time, and now I'm going to do it. And that's trust yourself that you're going to be okay. Not living in fear, but what if?
Yeah.
And having the ability to come home and you know, do what you need to do with family.
Yeah.
You know, because the situation called for it. Now, if you were in a full-time job, you probably wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah. So I've fought to create a life that feels aligned. And was it easy? No. Did it happen overnight? No. Has it turned out exactly how I thought it would? No.
That's the trap of social media. People just look and go, well, look where you are. I could never be there. But they're looking at from where they are now to where we are.
Yeah.
And it's like, we didn't get there because it was easy. We got there because we were determined to not stay where we were. And we worked hard and tirelessly, and we went through the shitty days and the days we never thought we'd make it, and the days where we fell down and fucked up and moved forward. You know, we got back up and go, well, I'll try again tomorrow.
Exactly.
It's not an overnight thing, but it's possible.
Yeah. So possible. Yeah. And I think, you know, I'll go back to you mentioning Atomic Habits earlier. That's a great book to read, to maybe remind yourself that it's those small, consistent steps that over time are going to add up. You know, didn't happen overnight for you, the healing. My journey to doing van life didn't happen overnight. It took a decade for me.
Yeah.
But here we are. And I think one thing that helped me, and I feel like this might resonate with you, is I had to ask myself, what is the cost of me staying where I am now and continuing to do what I'm doing? And for me, that was my mental health down the toilet, my happiness down the toilet, my relationships down the toilet. And you mentioned earlier, if you continued the way you were, you would have ended up dead.
Yep. And I knew, I thought, if I do this again, the next one's going to kill me. Right. And I thought, well, and the next, so that isn't an isolated statement. The next breath I said, and that's not fucking happening.
Exactly. That's an important second part of it.
Yeah. And then the next thing is, well, what are you going to do about it? Yes. So then all the other questions of what I've spoken to, you know, what is your version of a healthy relationship and my version of a healthy relationship are two different versions, but they're what works for us. And I think every relationship deserves healthy communication. Your version of healthy communication might be shouting every day, and it probably isn't, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like calling each other names. I had parents that went, your family this and your family that. Well, look at your sister and your mother this, and that's horseshit behaviour, man. And I knew that as a teenager. I thought that's bullshit. Every family's got its issues. We're human. We make mistakes. We have to accept family for who they are. With that is when issues come up, you need to communicate and talk it through as a couple of how you're going to navigate through that. And that's what I learned from my parents. And there's no way I would call anybody names. I think that's shitty behaviour. But somebody else might not have an issue with it.
Yeah.
Just with me, I will not do it.
Yeah.
Because my parents said that to each other. And I, in the heat of the moment, and they could never take that shit back once it's said. And that was the other thing I learnt from having an angry father, was that once he said shit, he couldn't take it back. So he would go through this cycle of being so angry, and then he'd get like so depressed because of what he'd said.
Right. Yeah.
And then, I'm a shitty human and all of that kind of thing. And it's like, he was never taught to, sit on the floor crying. He had trauma of, he walked from one paddock to another as a 3-year-old, and his 18-month-old brother followed him and drowned.
Shit.
Like, that was the trauma that went right back to that. And his mother could never cry because she was 9 or 8 months pregnant with his sister at the time. So there was like ricochets of trauma. And then as a 3-year-old, the Second World War was about to begin.
Wow.
So like, it just rolled on for the silent generation. And that's why they're silent, because you had to put your head down and get the job done, regardless of the trauma. Whereas we're beyond that as a society now. That doesn't work now. We're starting to have conversations around processing our emotions, and you've got the trauma guys there and doctors there, and that have been worked through trauma, like Peter Levine. I haven't listened to any of his works, but that was a guy that they talked about where he had a car accident, and he knew that Valium would stop him processing all his emotions. And this is contradictory to what I've said about medication. And I still stand by that medication. If you're struggling with your mental health and medication helps you get through, you fucking take that medication. These are trauma guys that he knew what he was doing, and he refused to take medication, and he processed all his emotions around his trauma in that moment. It was a car accident. So he knew to get in contact with those emotions. A lot of us that go through trauma shut down.
Yes.
Like, I was freeze, after my, being choked with my T-shirts. But there's a point where I have to process all of that emotion of, like, what'd you do? How dare you do that to me? And, feel the feelings. And don't do anything with them, just feel them. You'll find that once you feel them, they scuttle off and they're right. They do. They just disappear. And they won't come back, but they'll come back with less intensity.
Exactly.
And just that, there's a release in that. Punching a pillow, writing it out, and I talk to my group members. I have a post every week. What are you journaling at the moment? Get it out. Get it out of here. When I started journaling through depression, it alleviated. When I started journaling through breaking up from a girlfriend, I was so angry, and I just at no one else but the book. And then it's not about at anyone. It's the book, and then throw it out. Get it out of here and off your heart and off your shoulders. If you got sore neck, you've got a pain in the neck. What's going on? You know, get a therapist that can actually do the work. I went to a work counsellor, and he said, "Oh, so you got neck issues? Do you have pain anywhere else?" And I said, "Oh, I love my lower back." And he said, "What are you carrying around?" And I said, "Oh, what are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, there's emotions that you're carrying around because, you know, weight on carrying the cross, so to speak. And your back is a sign that you're carrying emotions that," and we're 20 minutes into the session, very first session.
Wow.
And I went, "Fuck you, you bastard." And then it all came out because I'd come out. I didn't think my family accepted me, that they didn't love me, that they didn't want me around. It was all my emotions around it. But I started crying and processing coming out, you know, and that's the other side of the LGBTQIA plus domestic violence, is that internalized shame of being, you know, in that community, of being gay, of being bi, of however you identify, having that internal shame because the world says, how dare you be anything but straight? They're the emotions I'm talking about. Process them down, then rip it up and throw it in the bin. If it's a family member, write it, a letter to them, rip it up and throw it in the bin, the outside bin, and get it out.
Yeah, you've got to get it out somehow.
You've got to get it out without hurting yourself, without hurting them, and get it out because you deserve that peace.
Yes.
They are living rent-free in your head, in your heart, in your body, all of it. And they don't deserve to be there.
Mm-hmm.
You deserve a complete ownership over all of that. And you have to work through and you have to lay the foundations of a healthy human, self-care, therapy when you need it, the awareness to know that you need therapy when you need it. Do I need to go back to church? I'm not a fan of modern day Western Christianity, but if that's your jam, that's your jam. Me, I connect with nature and nature speaks to me. I'm very intuitive, and, you know, there's been times where I swear to God the waves talk to me and slap me on the ass as I walk out going, "What are you leaving so soon for?" You know, like so many times I've lost count, but the cornerstone of healing and self-awareness and a healthy human is self-care, your therapy. You know, they're so important, and self-awareness, you know. So if you want to find that person, then find yourself first.
Yes. More people need to hear that. It starts within. It really does. Yeah.
Yep.
And on that note, because I think this ties in nicely, as you know, the podcast is called The Pursuit of Freedom, and I feel like self-awareness and self-care has a lot to do with that. But I would love to hear your take on what freedom is to you.
Not knowing, but daily being your authentic self and being unapologetic for it. Not rude, not arrogant, but unapologetic of showing up as you authentically are as a human. Whether that, you know, and I speak from a rainbow community, whether it means that you are starting to acknowledge you're trans, or you're starting to come out, or, you know, you're going through, you know, like in my case, married for 21 years and having to face finishing a marriage because I identified as a lesbian was traumatic for me. And that's only my story. And showing up for myself in my healing and being authentic and honest, that is freedom to me. Being kind to people is a certain level of freedom. Through COVID, I noticed we as humans looked at the ground.
Yeah.
And I do it anyway as a woman, but I noticed that once lockdown's finished, I made a point of looking at someone in the eye and say, "Hi, how are you?" I made a point of saying to the cashier, thank you for the
Yeah.
great job. And I talked about it on a TikTok about kindness costs nothing. I think that's a certain level of freedom. Being kind to yourself and breaking free of those constructs where you know you've said in previous conversations, you know, you are your own worst critic. You know, when we show up and be kind to ourselves and honor ourselves, that is a freedom that so many people don't have. And being authentic, whether it be how you identify or how you live van life, is a freedom that we all need to be in the pursuit of.
Yeah, I think so. I'm always striving for it because...
And it's a journey.
It
Because
is.
you might not be living your van life, and you might be going, you know, have a YouTube channel with 6 million followers. You know, it's whatever it is. You know, it'll show up the way the world needs it to show up. Because right now, the world needs Rosie in her van life. And right now, people in the Warrior's Way need Kylie, the barefoot warrior, to show up like she is in her house paying off her mortgage, which is the opposite. And so how can that be the same? It's the same in that we are authentically doing and living our purpose.
Yeah.
And we're living in our purpose, that is freedom.
Yeah, and that's such an important point. Your version of freedom is not going to look the same as mine or whoever lives across the road. It's great that it's different. That's what makes us uniquely us. And as you said, it's going to change. And in fact, I think it's a great thing. It shows that you're growing as a human.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the world would be a very boring place if it was the same.
Yeah. Ew.
Yeah, exactly. I've noticed a lot of big business had to change through COVID in order to survive, which shows we are capable of change and doing and making the capitalist beast that works. It can change to survive. You know, it doesn't have to be the 9 to 5. I couldn't work a 9 to 5 myself. I find shift work, I'm able to go to a beach on a beautiful day before work or after work. I'm able to sleep. I'm up at on night shift, which allows me to do a lot of, you know, scheduled posts in my group or have a coaching call with someone in America. I'm able to do that because I'm a shift worker.
Yeah.
And when everyone else is going to work, I'm not. That's the best bit. I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, I would prefer to be at home and do my course on a full-time basis. That's my
That's
aim.
what you're moving towards, right? You've got that vision. This is what I want, and you're taking the steps to get there.
Yeah. And the universe clearly wants me to do that. But I think prior to going overseas in July, I was pushing too hard. Once I've let go, it's come. So there's the ease of flow there, and just trusting that it will happen.
I'm a big believer that beauty can come from the depths of our darkness. I really believe that. And that's not to downplay our traumas or our struggles, but it's to embrace them.
He's saying that within that darkness, there is a seed waiting to germinate through that darkness. Through the heat of your self-care and your love and your self-love, it will germinate and blossom into the most stunning sunflower you've ever seen in your life.
Fucking love that. Yeah.
And with that watering and that soil of self-care and that watering with the therapy and the fertilizer of you know, showing up for yourself, it will develop into an amazing, stunning flower.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in order for that, you know what that seed does? It turns itself inside out. Within that darkness. When a butterfly goes from a caterpillar to a butterfly, it doesn't just show up as this stunning, amazing work of nature. It goes to mush and germinates and turns itself inside out and develops. The pupae develops into this butterfly. Cicadas are the same. They stay underground for about an exorbitant amount of time, and then they live for like a month.
Yeah. The shit we go through, it is you could even see that shitty stuff as the fertilizer, if you like.
Exactly. And I saw a quote when I would go on Pinterest for quotes, and one I saw was, a ship is not made to be in the harbour where it's safe. It's meant to be out in the ocean. You know, the harbour is there for a rest, and then it's meant to be out on the ocean where it's a bit rough. But there's also beauty there too.
Oh, Kylie, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I feel like I will definitely be inviting you back. You've got so much wisdom to share, and I actually can't wait to go back and edit this episode because I'll get to listen to the conversation again.
It's been a pleasure, Rosie.
Thank you so much. And for people listening, I will put all of Kylie's contact details below, her Facebook group. You can contact her if you want more information about the Unfuck Yourself course she's got, which is all about healing, and it's all based on her own journey, which, as you can tell from listening to this conversation, she's been on one hell of a journey and is one hell of a sunflower.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's been wonderful. Yeah.
We'll talk to you soon.
Yes. Thanks, Rosie.
If this episode resonated with you at all, could I please ask that you share it with a friend who you think could get value from it? And whilst you're doing that, make sure you follow and subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss another episode. And whilst you're following or subscribing, please leave us a rating, preferably 5 stars, and also a written review. Doing each of these things is going to help this podcast reach more people and impact more lives, which is, at the end of the day, is what we're here to do. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Remember, you matter, you're worth it, and you are so capable. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you next week.